I loved listening to all of Kate's ideas. I don't think we can run out of things at all to do with kids on a rainy day or any other day if we learn all of that. So my topic is going to be move it into the kitchen when the day is rainy, or move it into the kitchen any other time that you're willing to do that. Now, before I start the slides, I want to ask you, right now, what would keep you from being active with your kids in the kitchen or getting them involved with cooking? What practical thing would you be thinking about that you don't want the kids in the kitchen? Safety's one. Anything else? It's messy. It's really messy. Yes, it always is. Okay. Well, that was the first thing I thought of. And we are going to deal with safety here as well. When you have kids in the kitchen, understand that it is going to be messy. But the question is it worth it? And I want to tell you, it really is. I have so many fond memories of my own kids in the kitchen, as well as my kids out in the rain, too. So kids will get messy. But the point is, it is worth it. And there are so many things that being in the kitchen with kids does for them and for your relationship with the child, too. So, for one thing, kids love to participate in any activities that they think adults do. So, again, if you're thinking of a child who's either going to be sitting down, watching TV, or sitting down and playing with a video game, would you rather he or she be doing that or actually learning something and being helpful in the kitchen? In the long run, it's going to balance out and you will be very happy. So the kids love having an activity that seems very adult-like. The other thing is, children learn what it means to put a meal on the table. Now, it may be a surprise to you, but those of us that are working in the community have learned in the schools that many kids do not know where food even comes from, that there's so little cooking going on in families. And so there's a big push today. You'll hear it in the news, you'll read it in the papers, how important it is that we reestablish some kind of connection to where our food came from and how to actually prepare it, for economic reasons and for health reasons. So children also are going to eat what they help prepare. Now, how many of you have had the situation where you say, my child won't eat vegetables, my child won't eat this or won't eat that? Honestly, if they're involved in even going to the grocery store and being part of the purchasing selection, that's a great thing to do with kids. It doesn't have to be a rainy day. But make it special, make it intentional that you're involving the child in the selection of, for example, fruits and vegetables, things they've never seen or eaten before because you don't cook it. And haven't we all got a whole list of things that we've never thought about cooking for our children or our families? So it's a very positive thing for a child to have an opportunity to pick out the food or pick it from a garden and take it in the kitchen and learn what it is, what you can do with it, and to taste it. So I call this the joy of cooking with the kids, and I still carried through some of our messy pictures because the kids really do remember how much fun they had in the kitchen. It is so important that a child have an opportunity to touch, see, smell, and taste ingredients, and this is the way you get them to try new foods. It makes such a difference to them to have that experience of getting to know food. Home prepared foods, this is another benefit of having children get involved in food preparation in the kitchen. Home prepared foods are generally healthier. And they're healthier not simply because they're not processed, but you have control over what you're doing in the kitchen, what you're doing with those ingredients. So for example, even if you're making a cake or cupcakes, you have control over how much oil you're putting in there, how much sugar you're putting in there. A lot of the purchased products actually are a little too sweet, and when you make it yourself, you might not put so much in, or at least you know what the ingredients are. And again, it's a wonderful thing for kids to know what it takes to put together a cake or a casserole, or what to do with vegetables. So kids also learn skills. We're going to talk about that. These skills are going to promote their own health for a lifetime. Seriously, I'm sure you know or you might even be one who never had an opportunity to cook as a child and then became a busy adult and does very little cooking. I think all of us have learned how to get convenience foods and how to cook in a very short period of time if we have to cook at all. So cooking can be fun, even if you're just doing it on the weekend or one night a week. It's a fun thing to do. Now, there are so many skills that children learn in the kitchen. They learn language skills. They learn how to take directions, and they learn how to give directions. They learn vocabulary that they wouldn't learn otherwise. They'll learn what the tools are in the kitchen. I've had the experience where someone didn't know what a spatula was. Now, I'm that way with tools. I think I've gotten a lot better. But there was a time if you asked me to get the screwdriver or now I can't think of something else. So it doesn't hurt. This is good vocabulary to know what the peeler looks like and to know even a garlic press. Not saying you need a garlic press, but that you would learn what it is. It enhances math skills. Now, anyone want to talk about what the math skills are here? Just the simple math is not really that simple. So I think as a dietitian, I am educated in nutrition, and the most important question people will ask me, my peers at work will be, how many teaspoons are in a tablespoon exactly? And now, of course, I think I'm brilliant because I know there are 3 teaspoons of sugar or anything in a tablespoon. So that's something you all know. 2 tablespoons in an ounce. That isn't even the math I'm talking about, but there's still lots of that. For a child to be able to measure a half a cup and then see what that is in relation to a whole cup, to even know what a cup is. That, we've been talking about 16-ounce sodas in New York City, or is it 20-ounce sodas? Okay, we were going to limit them to 16 ounces. So today we really don't know what a cup is. A cup is 8 ounces. So children, you can imagine, as they're exposed to this in the kitchen, they actually learn something, and they're able to use it elsewhere. It's also a time to get kids interested in science. Now, one example I was thinking about was making popsicles. The kids can mush up some fruit and put some water in it and put it in an ice tray. Some of you have something a little fancier, maybe from Tupperware or something like that, where you can make your own popsicles. Well, that liquid goes into the freezer and it comes out a frozen treat. So that intrigues a child to know what happened to that now that it's hard. And so there are all sorts of examples in cooking. When you cook food, you change something chemically about that food. And kids are curious about that. So it's a wonderful way to get them very interested in that sort of thing. Now, improve large and small motor skills. I think some of us are still improving our large and small motor skills. But when you're in the kitchen using tools, that's a great time to learn how to very carefully do things. And it's a wonderful activity for kids to do, even if it's difficult at first. And that's one of the problems we parents have. Children are going to be messy. They're going to spill something, and you might not have another 2 eggs. Or now of course I do all this too, so I'm very compassionate to children who are having trouble with keeping the ingredients where they're supposed to be in the kitchen. But it is a great exercise for them, not to mention they're happy almost the whole time they're working on these activities. One question people always ask is, well, how soon can I bring my child in the kitchen? So I'm curious, is there anyone here who has had a child very young play with them in the kitchen? You like to do that? It's even fun to wash the dishes. It's even fun to put them up on a chair. They shouldn't be a chair. What should it be? Should be something, something where they can play in the sink. That's a wonderful activity for children. They love that. But it's also important that they learn that when you're preparing food, cleanup does have to happen. And it's a real good thing to start them very early on that. It isn't the kids get to do this stuff and mom gets to clean up. It should be everybody has a chance to do that. So children as early as 2 can be working in the kitchen, and there are certain activities that they're going to be able to do. For example, they can rinse vegetables. You can just put them up at that sink, or you could have a bowl even and have them rinsing the lettuce or the spinach in there. They can snap green beans. Now, that's almost a forgotten art, but we do get these bags in the grocery store now where they're fresh green beans and they're nice and clean, but you still may want to snap them, and kids love that. It also makes them very interested in eating the green beans. So a 2-year-old can hand something. Get mommy a towel, get mommy a hand towel, put this in the trash. That's another skill. A child learns that we're going to be putting some of the potato peels into the trash. So you can put the potato peels into the trash. Okay, they can wipe off tables and chairs, even if they're not doing it so well. What a good thing to start children early on participating in the cleanup. Then 3-year-olds can actually add ingredients. Now, you might be measuring them at this point. Now, when they're a little bit older, they're going to learn to measure it. 5 years of age, they're going to be measuring and learning even to even off. Now, you don't always have an even cup, but they can learn how to do that. Scoop and mash potatoes. Spread peanut butter with a dull knife, not with your sharpest. Knead and shape dough. Help put foods together. We're going to maybe do some of that today. And name and count foods. So it's just a wonderful laboratory in the kitchen, a place where you can teach them anything that you know. And they're very interested in learning that. I have a handout that continues on and says what you can do with a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, and maybe up to 6. But I think the emphasis I'd like to place on developmental skills is that they begin early, and to bring the child into the kitchen as often as possible, as early as possible, so that this will become a routine. It's a wonderful family activity. Now, someone mentioned the safety, and safety is a concern. And I know my concern back when my kids were small was more they're going to get hurt. And to this day, I still am not really very cool about knives. I have taught classes to teenagers, and I will see them with a knife, and I'll yell, "Knife coming across the room." So I'm so afraid someone's going to stab someone with a knife accidentally. And so I know we have to be especially careful with knives. We have to be especially careful with equipment that could very seriously hurt someone. So we're talking about the younger kids now. And so in terms of safety, it is important that we teach a child how to use whatever we're asking them to use. So for example, a grater seems pretty benign, but a grater is something, again, an older child would use and would have to be carefully instructed. As much as it looks intuitive how to use one, you have to be very careful not to slice your skin off when you're using a grater. The same thing with a peeler. So we start, the other part of safety, there's the safety injury prevention. And I guess I should continue with that, like preventing burns. It's important that pots, if you're actually cooking food and heating it, that the pot handles are turned to the side. You don't want pot handles. If you have like a saucepan and it has a handle, you want to turn those handles into the stove so they're not protruding out, where a child could either reach up or accidentally bump into it. You want to have the pot holders very close to where anyone is going to be handling hot food. And then the most critical point that I will make and will repeat to ad nauseum is wash hands. Now, with flu seasons, you've all heard this over and over again. Washing hands is your best way to prevent yourself from getting sick, from colds and viruses. In the kitchen, there's another incentive, and that is because some of our foods are actually carrying bacteria that could be harmful. So we have cutting boards that we use for the vegetables and cutting boards we use for meat. I think that's a little advanced for us to be talking about today, especially if we're talking about the younger children. But eggs are also a concern. And how many of us have eaten cookie batter? And some continue to eat cookie batter today in spite of being told that our eggs are very often contaminated with salmonella. So raw eggs are not to be eaten raw. If you have a recipe or if you have something you want to do with raw eggs and you want to consume them that way, they have to be pasteurized. So you'd have to buy them in a container that had been pasteurized, not in the shell. Okay? So if you're making cookies and you're using eggs, in the dough, then you really shouldn't be eating that dough because there's a possibility of getting a stomach virus. It makes you very sick. So 10 years ago, the incidence of salmonella poisoning was not as great. So what the problem is today is that more of our chickens have the salmonella bacteria. So we're not to eat raw ingredients, so we have to tell the kids that. And also, if a child is sneezing, even though this is in your own family, if the child sneezes, we have him wash his hands. Hopefully he's not sneezing into the food. But anytime you pick up something and it is soiled, then you're going to rewash your hands. I brought with me 2 recipes today. There are lots and lots and lots of recipes for kids. I just wanted to give you some examples of some healthy things that kids could put together. And this was just one of them. Hummus fondue with pita and cucumber. What I was going to do was just show how easy it is. We're not going to cut up the cucumber, but that is a job that could be assigned to an older child to cut up the cucumber. And children of a certain age can also peel the cucumber. I like them with the skin on them because they're easier to handle, and it is good for you. You can eat the cucumber skin. I have pita bread down there. This is hummus, and the recommendation in the recipe is that you add a little bit of vegetable broth to it to make it the consistency more like a fondue. And then you could actually use skewers if you wanted to dip the vegetables or the pita into the hummus. So we have some of that up here, and we could at least show how to put it out. Another recipe. Now this can be done tons of different ways. This can be done with vegetables as well, but kids love dip and they love kebabs. So making a fruit kebab is great fun, and you could picture doing that on a rainy day or an afternoon when they get home from school. And all you do is you have a variety of fruit, and I had bamboo skewers at home, and I neglected to bring them, so I went and got these. These can be used probably on the grill. And probably not so great for kids because they're very pointy. But the bamboo skewers you can use. And take fruit and, you have it cut in bite-sized pieces and just put it on here, and the child can create his or her own creation. And then there are different ways to create some dips. There are a lot of different things, but just good old vanilla yogurt makes a wonderful dip, and if you could put some fruit in that just to color it up if you wanted to make it chunkier. So they could have their skewer, have it on a plate, and then dip the different pieces in the vanilla yogurt. And that seems like a real treat. And there are any number of ways you could do that. Okay, I have up here on the screen my plate. This is what is being used today to teach nutrition in general. It's a very, very simple way. I have to see what my time is. It is a very simple way to build a healthy plate. Whether you're making a plate for breakfast, for lunch, dinner, or a snack. The intention behind this healthy plate is that we eat food from every food group every day. And if possible, when you're having breakfast or you're having a snack, to have multiple food groups represented in your snack. And the intention behind that is that there are nutrients that you can only get from this certain group. So for example, you're not going to get the vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals that you need in meat when they're only present in fruits and vegetables. And the fruits and vegetables, by their colors, you can see that they offer different nutrients as well, which is why we want you to eat as many colors as possible. So that's a reminder, and we were talking about resources. My favorite resource at the moment is that www.choosemyplate.gov. And on that website is information for all age groups, for young children, for teenagers, and if you as an adult want to keep track of your nutrition, the foods you're eating, your activity, there's something on there called a tracker. This is a free website, no cost. You go on and it has tons of things to do. And then a plug for the American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. They also have some children's information as well, and that's www.eatright.org. So if anyone has any questions, I hope we have time for questions. And you're welcome to come up, and if anybody wants to put together a skewer of fruit, you can do that.
Well, I'm still confused about the use of eating cookie dough with raw eggs, because all eggs that I buy are pasteurized, and I still can't make the connection of how we still get infected with salmonella.
If the egg is pasteurized, then it does not have salmonella in it. That would be the point. Our milk is all pasteurized because by law it has to be, but not our eggs. So if your eggs are pasteurized, they will probably come in a box. I mean, like they will be in liquid form because they've had to be subjected to a high heat. Yeah, sometimes I buy eggs that have the omega-3s added, and they're not pasteurized. Like if you were making eggnog, you were intentionally going to have raw egg, and people were going to drink it, then you would buy the liquid. You would buy pasteurized eggs. But for cookie dough, now if you want your kids to eat the cookie dough, then that's what you'd want to do. But it's a warning. It's been around. Yes? Yeah, sure.
So if I do decide to try the liquid egg, how is that measured equal? How do I know I'm using one egg?
It's right there in the box.
Okay.
And I have to look every time again. It always says what the equivalent is.
Okay. It is measured.
Oh,
okay.
It is, yeah. It'd be like a quarter cup. I don't remember if that's what it is. It's a quarter cup is equal to one egg. But it's going to be right there. It's going to have serving size, and it's going to tell you, because most of us aren't going to remember something like that.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming.